Hey everyone, it's Matt here from Hopskeller.
Hi, I'm Kyle Wolf. I'm with the St. Louis Carboy Junkie Homebrew Group.
Hi, Scott Kurtz here. I'm the Vice President of the St. Louis Brewing Homebrew Club and the founder of the St. Louis Area Homebrewers Guild on Facebook.
And the three of us are actually coming to you with a really special update about one of the fall seasonals the three of us have done here at Hopskeller to be released later in September. Now that we're beginning to head into the fall season, it's obviously time to start brewing some of the autumn seasonal beers here at Hopskeller. Now the ones that I normally do are a lot of fun to do, but I want to do something particularly special, something I've never done before. Now obviously that requires some knowledge and some skill that I really needed a second and third opinion on. And that's actually what led me to two of my good friends, as well as some of the best homebrewers I know, Scott and Kyle. You want to talk a little bit about your homebrewing experience and some of your thoughts going into this project?
As I said earlier, I am the VP of the St. Louis Brewing Homebrew Club. I also founded a group for all the area homebrewers on Facebook, the St. Louis Area Homebrewers Guild. Been homebrewing for about 6.5 years now. Started with little 1-gallon kits and I moved up to 5 and 10-gallon kits. I love brewing lagers. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to help out with this.
And fun little fact, we actually met when I started picking up the homebrewing hobby after I moved back home from Oregon. So I'd been brewing out there and needed a fresh start in St. Louis, and you're one of the first people to start selling me stuff.
Yeah, at the time I was working at the St. Louis Wine and Beer Making Homebrew Supply Store out there in West County by the Chesterfield Town Country border. Matt was one of my customers at the time, always came to me with advice, really creative ideas, brought in samples a bunch of times, and everything he brought in was usually, I saw maybe 98% of the time was in pretty solid shape. So,
thank you. And what about you, Kyle?
So I started homebrewing, it's been almost 10 years now. I started back when I was in grad school down in Alabama. At the time it was still illegal, which made getting ingredients really, really hard because homebrew shops weren't legal either. So I was a part of the Carboy Junkies down there, and it was a bunch of guys that would secretly get together at a bar that would recognize it, and it was a good time, but we couldn't enter competitions or anything, and so we started there. And when I came back to St. Louis, I wanted to bring the Carboy Junkies back with me, and that's how we started the group.
That sounds awesome. I genuinely had no idea about any of that. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, I think Mississippi and Alabama were probably the last two states to actually legalize homebrewing.
Well, you know what they say about Mississippi. It's the only thing that keeps Alabama from being number 50.
Yes! The collaborative project that the three of us are doing together is a maple candied pecan Oktoberfest. We're already taking a malty, smooth, German-style lager and adding to it pecans candied in maple syrup, along with blocks of maple wood that have been candied along with the pecans and the maple syrup. We got really high hopes for this beer, and we cannot wait to talk about what's going on and how we came to these ideas. So seeing as how it's actually boiling in the brewery right now, maybe we can talk about what it actually is that we're doing back there.
We're going to add in some pecans that we candied in maple syrup the other night. Then we're also going to add in some sugar maple blocks as well that have been cooked, caramelized, candied. We've just done all kinds of stuff with them.
Yeah, one thing that we're really going for this beer in particular is a candied maple pecan Oktoberfest.
With how Matt and Scott were talking about how kind of big and sweet this Oktoberfest lager is, it has a lot of big bready and nutty notes to it, and which really had me starting to think when we were discussing this project is, so I really like to cook, and I was wondering what could really play with these flavors, and we were starting to bounce things back and forth. And when we started talking about adding nuts into this, like the idea of a sweet pecan intermixing with that nice bready, already very full body beer, it just kind of hit close to home. And eventually we kind of fell on this idea of candying those pecans in this maple syrup, and that's going to lend this really nice sweetness. And well, you can't smell it, but we can. And it's...
As Matt and Kyle are talking about the Oktoberfest style, also known as a Marzen, it's a really old school traditional German style beer that's been around for hundreds of years at this point. It goes back to Bavaria in Germany. There was a wedding at one point for some of the royalty. Decided to hold a big party, which later on became known down the road as Oktoberfest. And this is kind of the beer they always serve at the festival. The malts in there have a very rich, malty, bready taste to it and everything. Not quite liquid bread, but close enough. Almost has a nice kind of really, sometimes it has like a little bit of a kind of a toasty, crusty flavor to it. And then we got to talk about different things you can put in the beer. We started talking about maple and pecan, and all of a sudden I thought to myself, liquefied maple pecan pie in a glass.
Yes.
What's not to like about that?
Immediately after we started talking about this, one of the challenges that it very quickly came up was how to actually impart maple flavor into a beer. I'm pretty strict about no artificial flavorings, no extracts, nothing like that, which actually creates a problem for something that is basically 100% syrup. As it would all ferment out, and you actually are left with not anything we would normally associate with a maple flavor. Something very dry, kind of woodsy. So the three of us got to talking about how to actually impart that flavor and keep that flavor. And in some ways the pecans will help a little bit, but also one thing that we came upon was toasting maple wood. This is something that a lot of smaller craft breweries do to really impart some strong woodsy flavors to their beers. And really the conversation just kind of went from there, from toasting the maple wood to candying it, and you were the one up there just finishing up the rest of that. So you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Well, it kind of came to mind that, so maple's a very sweet wood. It's got a lot of sugar just kind of naturally present in the wood, so if we toasted that, we'd be able to get some of these caramelization reactions happening as we toasted it, which would then impart that nice maple syrup flavor.
One of the challenges that this beer presented, of course, was that a lot of this actually had to be done within my apartment. This was 40 pounds of pecans being candied, one tray at a time. They were toasted a couple days before, candied. I mean, we're looking at hours and hours and hours together of getting this just the way that we want it. But I think as a result, even just from the smells, both in the apartment, the smell that I can't seem to get out of my pores, and the smell in the brewery right now, I think this is going to be one of the best beers we've ever made.
Definitely. Because I know this had to be a lot of fun for you to make it, because I know traditionally you kind of pride yourself on getting the process absolutely perfect, but also not getting too complicated with what you're doing with the recipe. And this is probably the most involved beer you've ever made.
Certainly an involved one, and of course your guys' help has been instrumental in it, absolutely instrumental in it. And of course, with a beer like this, it will be a limited release. This is going to be a one and done for fall, and so this week, be sure to catch it. We look forward to hearing what you think about it.